Hey, I'm Paris with Paris My Reads, and you're watching Disney Channel. Just kidding. Where are my millennials out? I want to do that every time I start one of these. You're watching my YouTube channel. We're going to go into all my monthly books. These are 4 of the 8 that I read. Actually 9, because spoiler alert, I DNF'd a book this month. So I'm going to mention that one. I'm not going to go into details, but I will link it in my Goodreads below. So let's get into all of these. First time ever I'm sharing a DNF with you. This means did not finish, and this was an arc I got. This is actually a really popular book, and it is gaining in popularity, and the book is Our Infinite Fates by Laura Steven. No, you know what? I held out till 50%, and I got this as an arc, so I was reading it to try and keep up with my NetGalley arcs, and I'm also on this publisher's review program, and yeah, it was just a big no all around. So I'm not going to get into why, but since it's such a popular book, I wanted to draw attention to it. If you want to check out my DNF review, you can find that on Goodreads. 3.5 star category this month. I usually don't have very many books below 4 stars, and this month I had 2 in the 3.5 star range. And we will talk about the one I rounded down on Goodreads to a 3 star, because Goodreads doesn't let you half star ratings, but I rounded down to a 3 star on Babylonia by Costanza Casati, and I had really high hopes for this. I got this one as an ARC 2 on NetGalley. It's been out for a while, so I was late on getting to this one, but I've been trying to clean up my ARCs on NetGalley and get caught up. I actually listened to the audio, and I loved the narrator. I think part of my low review is due to some mix-up in what I thought the genre was going to be. I went into it thinking it was a mythological retelling, but halfway through listening, I was like, what? I thought this was a mythology retelling. So I looked it up on Goodreads, and it said it was historical fiction. So then at that point, I was like, oh, this is not doing it for me. And I'll get into that in a second. Well, it turns out as I was reading or listening to the author's note at the end, it is a mythological retelling. So then a lot of it made more sense. Basically, the premise of this book, it's set in the ancient Middle East in the Assyrian Empire. And as an art history, I have an art history master's degree. So the beginning of this book mentions the Code of Hammurabi, and I'll put an image up here of that. And I've seen this, and I love when any type of book references some type of historical art history piece that I have studied before. So I started off this book like all about it, because it mentioned the Code of Hammurabi, and we're in the time period of Assyria, and there is like a whole nother thing I love about Assyria and their big huge statues they had at their gates, and I'll put a picture up of that here. I've seen those as well. This is a picture of me in front of them at the British Museum. So I just was like eating it up. But the reason why I looked up if this is a mythological retelling or not is because the main character is a female, and I feel like it was playing too much into the female rage and female power trope that's trending right now. And that just was too much appropriation for me for the Middle East. However, this is actually a mythological retelling, and it does actually follow the mythology, I think, pretty closely. After listening to the author's note, I think it follows it pretty closely. And also there was one single female ruler in the Assyrian Empire, and so I realized at the end, like, oh, because this was going to be like a 2.5 star for me, but then this bumped it up a whole star at the end when I realized, oh, this actually is following it pretty accurately for historical fiction. It is like half historical fiction, half mythological retelling. So it is like ancient Middle East mythology. So I actually kind of loved it. However, there were some themes. There was strong language. There were a few non-explicit open door scenes. And then the content was themes of war, killing, violence, extramarital affairs, and same-sex relationships / attraction. So all of those wrapped up kept it from me putting it into the 4 star category, even though I really loved the premise and the historical setting, time period, all of that. Okay, next in the 3.5 star category, which I rounded up to a 4 on Goodreads, is 20 Years Later by Charlie Donlea. I'm just gonna say Donlea. I apologize. Okay, this is a thriller, and this is my second by him, and the other one I've read by him and this one were pretty similar in the fact that they both have a national television, I'm revisiting this crime type aspect to it. Those were the similarities. The premise of this is that there's this young reporter. She is the main anchor on a extremely popular American television show, and she is revisiting going back to New York where she's originally from to dig into a cold case from, it's like half cold case, half it was resolved. And it also centers around 9/11. Interesting dynamic that I haven't read in a thriller. And that's all the information I'm going to give you. But she basically pairs up with the head detective that was on the case 20 years prior. And they start digging back into the case together. So that is the premise. The reason why I gave this 3.5 stars is because some of the themes in it were not my favorite. Let's get into my quick takes. The language was strong, so we had some strong language throughout. The spice was closed door, kind of. I'll get into that in a second. But the actual like between the characters in the storyline, the spice was closed door. Content was death, murder, infertility, extramarital affair, detailed autopsy, and this is the kicker. Themes of BDSM, and I'm not going to go into what that is, but if you don't know, don't look it up. But anyway, that part of it, it wasn't explicit, but like I don't want to give anything away if you decide to read this, because I need to read more by Charlie Donnelly. Like I said, this was the second of his that I've read, but his twists are crazy, so I definitely need to read more of his. I believe I gave the other one I read of his 4 stars. I don't remember what the name of it is, but his books are actually on Amazon Reading, like Amazon Prime Reading, so you don't have to have Kindle Unlimited. You can just, if you have Amazon Prime, you can access his books, so that's awesome. They're free if you have Amazon Prime for your Kindle. Where was I? Okay. The BDSM, they weren't explicit, but it was evidence, so it was talked about like what they used. So I just like didn't like having that as part of the narrative. That was like the big kicker for me, like not giving it a 4-star. Maybe skip this one if you don't want to read about that. It took me a while to get into this. I mean, like 70%. That's a while. So not until the last quarter of the book was I like truly into it. I think this is classified as a thriller, but it felt more like true crime suspense to me. There wasn't really any like scary thriller type things happening, so I would label this more as true crime. But starting at 75%, the twists keep coming, and he is amazing at his twists, and I didn't see it coming at all. So I'm just thinking about the final twist at the end again. So okay, the twists are really good. The twists made the book for me, okay? If the twists weren't happening, this book would have just been like a flop for me because the BDSM was unfortunate. All right, we're going to quit talking about that, and we're going to get into the next category. I have one book in the 4-star category this month, and that is the ABC Murders by Agatha Christie. And I had this book as my read-along this month. So this was the book I hosted for my read-along. If you want to join that, you can. I'll put my Fable link in the comments. I run it mainly on Fable because I really love their book club feature. But yes, I'm a big Agatha Christie fan, and I think this is the 5th book I've read of hers now. So I mean, I still haven't read a lot of hers, but it's just like such a great cozy mystery, and I usually can't figure out, and even if I do figure out, like, it's cozy, you know, like it's fine. It's a good little palate cleanser in between bigger, heavier reads, and it's usually slower paced but fast enough to keep you interested. So I just really love Agatha Christie books. They're classics, and let's get into this one. The ABC Murders is part of Hercule Poirot's series that Agatha Christie writes, and this is book 12, and I have not read these in order. Like I said, I've only read 5 of her books, so I obviously have not read all 12 Hercule Poirot books in order. They do act really well as standalones. I will say, if you read them as standalones, the introduction is like a little bit dicey because you're trying to figure out, like, how do I know who this guy is? But he's a Belgian detective who lives in London, and if you like Sherlock Holmes or any of the like old-timey detective movies like that or shows, Agatha Christie is your girl. There is some mild language, and this one had the Lord's name taken in vain. Spice, there was none. And then the content of this one was death and murder. So obviously it's a murder mystery. There is murder in the title. This book actually had a dual point of view, which I was not expecting, and I really liked that element in it. It had a nice little twist at the end too. I had half of the ending figured out, like who did it, but I was still missing a really big piece of it, and I could not figure out that part. It's always fun when you can't figure it out. But again, Christie never fails to deliver a solid, cozy murder mystery. So if you're looking for something to fit the bill, definitely check out her books. My favorite by her is And Then There Were None. Also part of the Hercule Poirot series is The Murder on the Orient Express, and that's another one of my favorites as well. On to the 4.5-star category. I have 2 books in this category this month, and they're both by indie authors. They're both indie romance authors. One of the biggest things I love about this whole book thing is that I have found a lot of really fun indie authors that I would not have found if I hadn't started my Bookstagram. First up is The Magic of Light by Jordan Avitz, and this is her debut. It is a closed door romance, and it is a pretty heavy hitter. There's some deep content in here. So let's get into my quick takes on this one. I gave this one 4.5 out of 5 stars. The language on this is actually moderate. And like I said, the spice is closed door. There's some heated kissing as well. And then content of this book is traumatic childhood, past off-page references to child abuse and sexual assault, foster care, CPTSD, recovering alcoholic, and past death of a family member. So there is a gamut of really heavy content considerations in this. However, you're following a romance narrative, so I think having the romantic element while exploring these really deep themes helps balance the heavy and the light. If you would be triggered by any of those, do not read this book because it's heavy. I went into this book completely blind, which I do with most books, but I mean, like, look at how cute this cover is. I was not expecting. The intro opens like a thriller, honestly. I was like, what am I reading? There is some heartbreak and heartache in this book, and Jordan does a really great job of handling that and diving into it and wrestling with it through her characters. So I actually got to meet Jordan in person. She is a semi-local author. I think she lives a couple hours away from here, but she was in town for a writing conference, and I got to meet her, and I had her sign the book, and it just came out, and so she signed it for me and gave me a cute little bookmark and stickers. The stickers are gone. My girls already took them. But I have the cute little bookmark, but would highly recommend The Magic of Light by Jordan Avitz. The second book in my 4.5 star category is Secret or Shutout by Leah Brunner. I am obsessed with Leah Brunner. She was one of the first indie authors I found on Bookstagram. This book specifically is the fourth and I believe final book in the DC Eagles series, and they are hockey rom-coms, and this is by far the steamiest of all of them. This follows the goalie and how his relationship pans out with one of his teammates' sisters. There's some forbidden romance. There's some he falls first. Actually, all of the books in this series are he falls first, which I love. I love a good he falls first. It's also a reverse age gap, and let's just get into the quick takes. My quick takes on this one are 4.5 stars, and the language is moderate. The spice is fade to black and heated, passionate kissing. And then content is divorce, infertility, PCOS rep, and innuendo. And I want to say that this book, out of all 4.5, she has a novella too in this series. But I would say that out of all of them, this one has the most heat and innuendo so far. Or I assume this is gonna be the last one, but there you go. This one was extra fun because as you read the other books, the goalie, Bruce, he is just like a really fun-loving golden retriever type character, and he watches all of his friends fall in love and get married, and then he just kind of tags along with all of them in the other books. And so I love that she wrote him a book and that he now has a love interest, and it was really fun reading his story. I also got this one as an ARC from Leah Brunner. I love being on her reader team. She's one of the just few authors that I'm on their ARC teams for consistently, and so it was really fun getting a physical copy, and I now own 3 of her books, so I am slowly acquiring all of her books, so would highly recommend reading her. Okay, we're starting off my 5-star category with the historical romance that I've been talking about now the past 3 months, but The Unselected Journals of Emma M. Lyon by Beth Brower, and I am now on, let's see, this month I read books 5 and 6. So there are 8 books total out currently for this series, and I am getting up there. I'm in the very beginning pages of the 7th book because I just don't want it to end. So I'm taking my time with 7 and 8. But let's get into 5 and 6. So 5 was my absolute favorite by far, or so far. It just was so fun. I think coming off of 4, there was a lot of heavy grief, and so then in 5, it's just like a lot of fun chaos and quirkiness that you're back in to the fun-loving side of Emma and all of her friends. So I just really loved book 5. Emma is just still trying to figure out who she is, what she wants to do with her life, how she's going to make it all work, and it's just so much fun. And then book 6, the endings of these books. So I literally finished book 6, and these are all on Kindle Unlimited. So if you have Kindle Unlimited, you literally have no excuse. And I've slowly been buying up the hardback copies. They're pretty pricey, but I need the hardback for these. So I have the hardbacks of book 1 and 2, and I am slowly, as I get Amazon gift cards, I am purchasing the next books because they're pretty pricey and they don't go on sale. But the paperbacks are a lot more cost effective. So would also highly recommend just buying these because you're going to want them. You're going to want the physical books. I can just tell you right now. But they are on Kindle Unlimited, and that's how I've been reading all of them so far. And I literally finished book 6 and I downloaded book 7 and just started because they're her journals, so it literally picks up like the next day. So I just had to, after the ending of book 6, I had to keep reading, so I just went straight into 7, and I'm sure that book 8's gonna end that way too, which is why I'm trying to read really slow, because book 8 was just released, so it's gonna be a while till we get another Emma book. So anyway, definitely read these. Highly recommend. These were 5 stars. Nothing but really great things to say about the Unselected Journals of Emma M. Lyon. I saved the best for last. I don't think you're ready for my final 5-star is Malice by John Gwynne, and I like legit YOLO'd and joined a book club for this series. It's a 4-book series called The Faithful and the Fallen. I've never read anything by John Gwynne. I was curious about him though, because one of my friends on Bookstagram has been reading. She read a different series by him, and I was literally in Barnes & Noble and sent her a picture of this book and said, have you read this series by him? And she said no. And then the next day I saw that a couple of accounts that I follow on Bookstagram were hosting a read along for these 4 books for 4 months. So next month I'll be reading the second book called Valor, and I immediately was like, all right, I'm in. So I actually listened to the audio. I used an Audible credit to listen to the audio for this, and the audio was fantastic. Although I will say with epic, this is an epic fantasy, and so with epic fantasies, I think the immersive reading route is the best way to go. So I ended up buying all 4 of these, like a little box set on Amazon, and I say little because this is like the UK paperback size and it's small. Let's see, this is my Agatha Christie, so smaller, like shorter than my Agatha Christie, and like barely shorter this way. So it's a little chunky, not as small as the US mass paperback books, like mass market paperback printing, but it is smaller than the big pretty paperback that I took a picture of at Barnes & Noble and sent to my friend, but this one was way more cost effective. So I think that when you read epic fantasy, it's so great if you're listening on audio to also be able to, like, I want to be able to follow along in the book. So yeah, the great thing is that I know how to pronounce all of these characters' names. So listening to audio helps with that on fantasy, at least. But yeah, I'm going to be using my next month's Audible credit on Valor, and I already have the Valor book ready to go. But let's get into this book. Quick takes on Malice. Our language is mild and very far and few between. Like, it took a while for there to be any type of mild language. So I think maybe a handful, maybe less than that. Spice was none, and content was death, murder, killing, and themes of war. So this was actually like pretty clean in terms of language and content and spice. Love to see it. Additionally, what I loved about it is that there is big time biblical allegory that he's using to set up the lore of the realm, and I am like loving. I mean, it's called The Faithful and the Fallen, so he's using like fallen angels and a good god type character versus a bad god type character to set up the like what's happening. So I really love that. Additionally, it has a big foot into the real world because it feels like you're in almost Arthur of the Round Table type fantasy. The different kingdoms have like walled castles and cities, and they go out on campaigns and come back. And then there's also giants and magical type creatures as well. But I've been telling everyone, like I told my husband, you need to put this on your TBR. I told my brother, who's 10 years younger than me, that forced me to read Red Rising, that he needs to read this. I was like, you need to read this next, because he's been trying to find a good fantasy series to get into. So yeah, I just all around loved this book. There's a lot of points of view, which I also think is why I loved it, because I love, like, the more points of view the better. But this one took me a while to figure out like what all the points of view were doing, because he intros all of them like back to back to back to back to back. And so then once, by the time you like come back around to the first one again, you're like, what what was this person doing? So I think it was about 40% that it finally all came together for me, and some of the points of view were overlapping. With the book club that I'm doing this through, they sent out a character list of like high overview, who the biggest characters are and what kingdom they're in. I'm officially hooked on this series, and it has been taking all of my self-control to not jump into book 2. I already have my Audible credit sitting there waiting for me. I just need to like get the audiobook, but I know as soon as I get it, I'm going to listen to it. So we're waiting for next month to read Valor, but I'm very excited to get back into this book and this series. So if you are looking for an epic fantasy to read, this is it. Go read it. I will link the 4-pack of books that I bought because it was like $40 for 4 books. So well worth the smaller size to me. If this size bugs you, don't get it. But yeah, I would highly recommend getting that set. This size matches my UK Harry Potter books, so I kind of love it. I'm not upset by the size of these, even though they are a little bit small. But definitely read this series either on audio or Kindle or the physical book. It doesn't matter. Just go read it. And that's it for the 8 books I read this past month. If you are adding any of these to your TBR or are planning to read any of them or have read any of them, please let me know in the comments. I love hearing from you. Make sure to give this video a like and subscribe to my channel if you're not already. And then make sure to go give this video, let me see. Oh yeah, that's a good one. Go check out this video right here. And as always, I hope all of your reads are 5 stars.